Alright guys, and now I want to talk about how to play against an enemy piece that's been taken out of action. Alright, so very often you'll find that one of your opponent's pieces aren't ideally placed. Sometimes they're just misplaced, sometimes they're not coordinated with the other pieces, sometimes they're completely trapped on the wrong side of the board where there's no action. So one example I see a lot is bishop c4 in Sicilian, because a lot of kids learn that they should be attacking the f-pawn, Mr. Freddy on f7, and they think, oh, I'm going to go for scholar's mate or something like that. Or they start thinking they can get some fried liver like they would in the Italian game or the gioco piano. And then they try this in the Sicilian, and they realize, wait a second, this isn't so good anymore. The main reason why is after e6, the bishop is blunted, he can no longer see that well, and what happens is with time, the bishop becomes misplaced. Not only can he not see, he also gets pushed back. And when he gets pushed back by the black pawns, it becomes really hard to use him for anything productive. So for example, one day he may even get trapped. If he's not careful and he doesn't play a3, then we're going to trap him with c4. But luckily for him, he played a3, he's a smart guy, but now it's not much easier for white, considering that this bishop is taken completely out of action in the next few moves. After the trade, we're happy to trade off the queens as well, considering it's going to give us the d file for free. And if they leave the queens on the board, then I think I'm going to leave my queens on the board too, because I want the queen to start firing at the king side. And let's take a look at the position right now to see what's going on. All right, so black has more space, and not only the space, but the active pieces behind the space, right? Look at these amazing bishops when they come to c5 and b7, followed by rook on d8 and rook e8. Some window at some point, h6 would be useful in such open positions, because at some point my back rank may be exposed. And after that, I'm going to start maneuvering. So most likely I will put a bishop on c5. I want to get a knight to g6 and start attacking their king. Let's take a look at how things may go. Now, of course, I'm not playing the best moves by white, all right? I hope you understand that this knight really doesn't belong on e2, and this bishop clearly isn't doing a good job. But sometimes that will happen in your games, and you will be surprised to find an enemy piece completely out of action. And the only question is how to use it. Well, first ask yourself, which side of the board is that piece trapped on? Oh, is that the queen side? Great, then I guess I should focus on the king side. And that means my attack and my plans will evolve around the king side right now. Let's take a look at how this may go in this game, all right? So after queen b6, let's say they do nothing special, they just make a window, pretend like everything is fine. Okay, I'm going to pretend like everything's fine too, but I'm slowly bringing up attackers for what's about to happen. Okay, they bring in the rooks, good for them. I'm just going to maneuver my pieces to look at their king. And after, let's say, rook e1, which seems like a normal move, I'm going to get knight e7, knight g6. So let's say they swing back their bishop because they're scared, and I bring in my knight. Very soon, I'm going to get heavy pressure on the light squares. Let's say they play some random move. Already, knight g3 is blocking the poor bishop, who's not having a good time like his brother on a2. Let's say they do something a bit less sad, which it's already hard to imagine it. But okay, knight d4 makes sense, but then we have rook d8, and this spin is going to be really annoying. So maybe the best they have is knight g3, trying to get near the center, trying to get to d4 or e4, and trying to trade off the bishop pair, but I can always go for rook e8 and stop that idea. Already they're running out of moves. Let's say they move the queen somewhere. Okay, I think it's time to start attacking. I should, first of all, notice that f2 is weak, so I have bishop takes f2. But even if the queen didn't move and they just decided to stay back and do nothing, then I'm going to get my attack running. So already I have knight h4, and you'll find that this attack works better than usual. And if you're thinking, why is that? Why is this attack working so well that they don't even have f3? They can't even block my bishop on b7 because of the pin. It's because I have an extra piece. It's like when you play with an extra piece, life becomes easier by default, right? And so if I play something like queen c6, once again, good luck protecting those light squares with your light square bishop on a2. So when you manage to trap an enemy piece, whatever it may be, on one side of the board, then you can focus all your forces on the other, side and break through in there. So already they're running out of ways to stop me from playing queen takes g2. They have to start giving up knights. Okay, all because of this poor guy on a2, and clearly the h2 bishop didn't help either. Alright guys, so then how does this look like in a real game when both sides are trying their best? This does happen from time to time, and here's an example by the world champion Jose Capablanca. So in this case, we're going to keep a piece trapped on the king side and see if we can focus all our forces on the queen side. Okay, so Capablanca was playing black, and Capablanca was thinking, if only I could stop them from playing d4, because I have the bishop pair. Now I just need to stop them from getting the center with knights, and now the knights don't have any good squares. This is not really an outpost because I have c6, and even if they try to use my pin, they try to use the pin on the knight on f6, it's not a big deal because we always have g5. That's why it's important to include h6, so we always have g5. If we didn't have h6 and the bishop was still here, knight d5 is a scary threat. Okay, so that's why h6 is important. And after knight d5, we have g5, kicking them back, making sure they go away, and trading off the knights. If the knight didn't trade, then we will give them double pawns and get all the pawns rolling. Now this bishop is not going to have a fun time. It's going to look something like this, which they don't want to see either. My bishop will cover the light square holes, and black is in full control here. All right. So if they don't want that, they're going to take the knight themselves. But even after poor William took on f6, the bishop becomes a problem once again. Even though he's not trapped like he was in the last example, we're going to take away the only freeing maneuver he had, right? If I do nothing, I ask myself, what will he do? If I do nothing, likely he's bringing the knight to c4 on a pseudo outpost. He's bringing the pawn to f3. He's playing bishop f2 and saying hi to the pawn. Later on, he can bring the bishop to e3, maneuver the queen to f2, protect his king, and maybe I have some problems. Maybe he can develop some c3 d4 idea later on with the help of a rook on e1 and e5 later on. So I don't want to see any of that. Why don't we just stop all his plans with bishop g4, right? And we stopped his freeing maneuver with the pawn on f2 because the pawn is now stuck forever, especially after I trade everything off. Notice that if they keep queens on, I get the same thing. It's just this time I get the same thing with queens, and that makes it a lot easier for me to attack. If I push the f-pawn, I have a f3 weakness that I can pile up on with the help of all my major pieces, right? Whereas their bishop is as stuck as he ever will be. Now, if they trade off the queens, I just get the same thing without queens, and I go to a successful endgame. Why? Because I'm up a piece, all right? Effectively, my bishop can always come out. My bishop can find a way. He can come to c5, even if we have to give up a pawn and protect e5. We'll just bring the bishop to c5 and start firing, right? Whereas his bishop has no such luck, because if they ever play h4, as he will later on, I can play f6 and just keep the barrier there. I put up a barricade of black squared pawns and make sure that his bishop never comes to life. He's got no way to come out from here. And because of that, I can slowly improve my pieces and now focus on the right side. What is the right side? Queen side. Okay, their bishop is stuck on the king side. My bishop can work on both sides. Of course, we're not going to attack the king, although a lot of people would try something like king g7, h5, rook h8, rook g8, king f7. I say, why? That's not where you have the advantage. You have the advantage on the queen side because there you're up a piece. So why not use that side of the board, right? So let's go use that side of the board. He brings the king to the center, getting ready for the endgame. He ignores the h file completely. He realized that the h file doesn't do anything here. Completely useless. Even if the rook does come in, it's not going to checkmate me because e7 is always covered. So there are no mating nets, no mating ideas, whereas your queen side will be under assault very soon. Okay, perhaps white would try to close things up, but even then I would have the b5 just better prepared, right? After the trade of the h-pawns, the h-file opens up to no effect, doesn't matter, and then I can start opening things up. You see how he prepares it with c6, right? A lot of beginners would just play b5, and that was just silly because after takes, good luck opening this position. my rook will go here, and I will try to attack your weakness, and all your pawns are surprisingly weak now. So instead of that, we have to prepare it. We prepare with c6, we open the game, and now we open it with the c4 break. Even though we're giving up a pawn, it's well worth it. Even if we give up this pawn, it's well worth it, because after taking on b3 and trading off this pawn for that pawn, we can get to d3 and we still have a pass pawn, whereas their bishop is helpless to stop us, completely incapable of doing anything for the white army. All right, he's always stuck here and he will never ever come out. It'll take him like at least 4 moves, if not more, to do anything useful, which is not even that useful. Even this diagonal will be kind of a waste. Okay, so that's why white tries to hold on with the rooks, but we can just take all his pawns and promote, because we have a bishop helping our pawn. And he actually resigned. Of course, we don't let their bishop in the game. Even if it gave us a pawn, I wouldn't even consider it. I keep the bishop in prison and get ready to push my own pawn. So after rook b4, he trades off one pawn for another, and the a pawn will be decisive, will decide the game. Okay, and actually white resigned because he knows that the pawn will get to a2. At some point, the king will go to d7, the bishop will go to a7, d4, be transferred to d4, and we will promote with the help of our bishop and rooks. And good luck trying to stop me, because my king is totally safe, and I have an extra piece on that side of the board. The king is going to be cut off the second I get my rook to d2. So the rule is, first, trap the enemy piece on one side of the board, and then easily attack on the other side, trying to open things up. White wishes he could close up the whole queen side like I showed you, but there was no way to do that because black was going to break in regardless in any case. Okay, so if you can open that side of the board, you will have an extra attacker to do whatever you want on that side of the board. Right? Hope you can use that, and hope you can trap your enemy pieces.